I never imagined I would find myself in a situation where I crossed an irreversible boundary, but one fateful night, someone close to the family offered kindness that made me reflect on my emotional state. Life has a way of catching you off guard, leading you to choices that forever change your narrative, marking a clear divide between what was and what is. It doesn't gently warn you or give you a nudge to be cautious. This is when everything shifts. It seeps in softly, gradually, like a drop of water finding its way through an unnoticed fissure. By the time you understand the gravity of your actions, you're already overwhelmed by the consequences. The silence in my house was heavy, filled with unspoken tension. The atmosphere was chilling and desolate, where even the faintest heartbeat echoed like a thunderclap in the silence. My husband was present in body, but where was he emotionally? Emotionally distant. Years have passed, and he no longer pays attention to the little things. I stopped hearing the concern in their voice. He just cut me off. I faded into the background of my own existence. I would prepare meals, do the laundry, and tidy up after everyone. Even now, I find myself lying awake at night, questioning whether I ever truly mattered. Questioning if this is the reality of marriage after the initial bliss wears off. Perhaps that's why I was oblivious to the changes happening around me. When familiar eyes transformed into something deeper and simple gestures began to feel like essential connections. I never intended for this to happen. It caught me off guard. Yet my heart felt weary, exhausted from feeling overlooked, exhausted from the facade of normalcy, exhausted from passing by someone who remained indifferent. While I wept in the kitchen, my back turned to him. When someone in the house finally noticed how withdrawn I'd become, it reminded me of all the things I'd been missing emotionally. It revealed a hidden truth, a secret I thought I had left behind. In a single night, a moment of unexpected kindness made me reevaluate the emotional support I had lacked for so long, and how I perceived myself. I wish I could claim I put an end to it. I wish I could say I had more clarity before my emotions got too tangled to manage, yet I chose not to. Now, I carry a memory that haunts me, and the silence in our home speaks volumes beyond what words ever could. What transpired between us was subtle. It was a calculated choice. It lingered in subtle ways. Quiet, emotionally complicated. And that's what made it difficult to confront. I'm ready to share it all. Not that I'm boasting. Perhaps there's someone else who's experienced the same feelings I once had. Perhaps another soul is teetering on that brink, unaware of their precarious position. If you've ever felt overlooked in your own space, longing for someone to truly see, hear, or embrace you, this tale may resonate with you more than you'd care to acknowledge. If you're still here, please take a moment to click that like button. Join the journey of a heart-wrenching betrayal. If this resonates with you, if you found yourself in a tangled situation that made you doubt everything, feel free to share your story in the comments. I went through them. I truly do. Your experience could resonate with someone else, making them feel less isolated. Let me share the story of how it all started. What began as a simple act of kindness spiraled into an unforeseen emotional entanglement. At 38, after 12 years of marriage, I found myself feeling more alone than I ever had before. Our home appeared stunning from the outside, with a meticulously maintained lawn, inviting lighting, and a fresh coat of paint. Yet, deep down, it felt so empty. Not in a physical sense, but on an emotional level. A palpable tension hung in the air, an invisible weight that pressed against my chest the moment I stepped inside. The kind of silence that chokes rather than comforts. My husband, he wasn't unkind. He remained calm. He abstained from alcohol. He remained faithful. He simply was absent, not in the ways that truly affected me. He would arrive home from work, pour a drink, and then just sit there, lost in his phone or the TV for what felt like an eternity. Our conversations became limited to only what was necessary. financial obligations, shopping for essentials, meetings, we shared meals together. Yet it felt as if we were worlds apart. It was different once. Once he brought me to tears of laughter. When his hand brushed against my lower back in the kitchen, just like that. When we shared secret smiles and unspoken connections that held so much meaning. Yet, as time passed, it slowly diminished. At some point, I gave up on reclaiming what was lost. I told myself this was simply the way marriage is. Yet, I longed for that feeling of being seen as important. I longed for the feeling of being truly noticed. I began to realize that I was putting in less effort into how I presented myself. What was the purpose? He completely overlooked my new dress. He never said a word when I applied my makeup. One weekend, I took a leap and dyed my hair darker, bold, and different. Silence hung heavy between us. Never gave it a second thought. However, just a few days later, my stepson revealed it. He had just returned home. At 21, he struggled to find his footing in college, so we welcomed him into our home for a time. He was courteous, composed, and consistently showed respect. Silent yet aware. A person of few words, yet when he spoke, his sincerity was undeniable. We barely knew each other before he decided to move in. During his childhood, his mother, my husband's ex, held primary custody, and we saw each other only rarely. Yet there he was, in our home, stepping into the kitchen where I brewed my morning coffee, casually inquiring about my sleep. When he saw me that morning after I dyed my hair, he hesitated for a moment and asked, "Did you change something? It truly looks beautiful." I stared in disbelief. It wasn't that the compliment was excessive or out of place. It was simply that it had been ages since anyone had truly seen me. I offered a smile and expressed my gratitude, and he simply nodded before continuing with his tasks. There's nothing strange, no awkwardness, just a straightforward, sincere remark. Yet, it stayed with me. He was the only one who noticed my haircut, the only one who checked on me when I had a headache, the only one who expressed gratitude when I cooked. I had forgotten what that felt like, and it wasn't only his words that affected me. It was in his words, the way his gaze lingered on me as I shared my thoughts, making me feel truly valued, as if he was genuinely present. It felt like ages since anyone had looked at me that way, as if my words truly mattered and weren't just fading into the background. My husband and I lay side by side, yet we felt worlds apart. There were no tender goodnight kisses, no comforting warmth to be found. The silence at night was overwhelming, the distance between us growing even in sleep as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, questioning how much longer I could endure this life. Wondering if this emptiness was just part of the routine, if this was simply how it was meant to be. And yet, there he was, this young man in my home, unknowingly reminding me of my own existence. I attempted to push it away. I truly did. I attempted to ignore the way my eyes would wander to him at breakfast. There was a flutter in my heart when he inquired about my day. I convinced myself it was merely appreciation for the kindness, that it posed no threat. That familiar emptiness in my marriage, which had settled in like an old piece of furniture, became unbearable once more. I had experienced what it meant to be truly seen, spoken to, and acknowledged. Once you experience that warmth after years of feeling cold, it's nearly impossible to deny your desire for more. Unbeknownst to me, the seed had been sown, and soon it would blossom into something I could no longer manage. At 38, after 12 years of marriage, I found myself feeling more isolated than ever before. Our home looked stunning from the outside, with a neatly maintained lawn, inviting lighting, and a fresh coat of paint. Yet deep down, it felt so very cold. Not in a physical sense, but on an emotional level. A heavy silence hung in the air, palpable and suffocating, wrapping around me the moment I stepped inside. The kind of silence that chokes rather than comforts. My husband wasn't unkind. He remained calm. He abstained from alcohol. He remained faithful. He simply was absent. Not in the ways that truly affected me. He would arrive home from work, pour himself a drink, and then spend hours lost in his phone or the TV. We ceased all conversations that lacked a practical purpose. Financial obligations, shopping for essentials, meetings. We shared meals together, yet it felt as if we were worlds apart. It was different once. There was a moment when he brought me so much joy that I couldn't help but shed tears of laughter when his hand brushed against my lower back in the kitchen. Just like that. When we shared secret smiles and unspoken connections that held so much meaning, yet, as time passed, it slowly diminished. At some point, I just gave up on reclaiming it. I told myself this was simply the reality of marriage. I longed for the feeling of being seen as important. I longed for the feeling of being noticed. I began to realize that I was putting less effort into how I dressed. What was the purpose? He completely overlooked my new dress. He didn't say a word when I applied my makeup. One weekend, I decided to dye my hair a darker shade. Something daring. Something unique. Silence hung heavy between us. Never gave it a second thought. However, just a few days later, my stepson revealed it. He had just returned home. At 21, he struggled to find his footing in college, so we welcomed him into our home for a bit. He was courteous, composed, and consistently showed respect. Reserved, yet attentive. A person of few words, yet when he spoke, his sincerity was undeniable. We barely knew each other before he decided to move in. During most of his childhood, my husband's ex-wife had primary custody, and we rarely got to see him. Yet, there he was, in our home, stepping into the kitchen where I brewed my morning coffee, casually inquiring about my sleep. When he saw me that morning, after I dyed my hair, he paused for a moment and asked, "Did you change something? It truly looks beautiful." I stared in disbelief. It wasn't that the compliment was excessive or out of line. It definitely wasn't. It had been ages since anyone truly saw me. I offered a smile and expressed my gratitude, and he merely nodded before continuing with his tasks. No strange vibes, no stress, just a straightforward, heartfelt reflection. Yet, it stayed with me. He was the only one who cared when I changed my hair. The only person who checked on me when I was suffering from a headache. No one else ever expressed gratitude for my cooking. I have forgotten what that felt like. It was more than just his words. It was in the way he expressed it. The intensity of his gaze as I shared my thoughts, as if I truly meant something. It felt as if he truly understood. It felt like an eternity since I had seen that kind of gaze directed at me. What I said truly mattered. My husband and I lay side by side, yet felt worlds apart. There were no goodnight kisses. There was a complete absence of warmth. The sound of him snoring next to me filled the silence as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, questioning how much longer I could endure this life. Questioning if this emptiness was typical. This is just how it is. And yet, here was this young man living in the same house, unknowingly reminding me that I was still here. I attempted to push it aside. I truly did. I attempted to ignore the way my eyes would wander to him over breakfast. I felt a flutter in my heart when he inquired about my day. I convinced myself it was merely appreciation for the compassion shown to me. It felt innocent. The familiar silence in my marriage, once a fixture, became intolerable once more. In that moment, I truly understood the depth of being recognized. To be heard, I need to be seen. Once you experience that warmth after years of feeling cold, it's nearly impossible to deny your desire for more. Unbeknownst to me, the seed was already taking root. It was inevitable that it would evolve into something beyond my grasp. That night, sleep eluded me. In the silence of the night, I found myself alone. the only sounds being the gentle hum of the fridge and the faint creaks of the settling house. As my husband slept next to me, his back rising and falling in a slow, familiar rhythm, I felt a heaviness in my heart. No one reaching out to see how I'm doing. There was no gentle inquiry, no soft question of concern, only the same chilling quiet. Yet, he lingered in my thoughts. The intensity of his gaze as we sat together on the couch. His voice was soft and soothing. His eyes held a warmth that drew me in. I kept reliving that moment again and again. "You deserve to feel cared for," he said, in a way that surprised me with its sincerity. The familiar pain returned, a gradual throb expanding within me. A feeling of warmth that had been absent for ages. It took me by surprise. I struggled to suppress the thought, constantly reminding myself that he was my stepson. Yet, the term stepson now felt oddly unfamiliar. It felt so out of place, like it didn't align with who he was to me at that moment. I wasn't daydreaming. I never intended for this to happen. I was overwhelmed with emotion and guilt, unsure how I had arrived at such a complicated situation. I never intended to cross that line, but here I am, grappling with the weight of my choices. It started innocently enough, but soon it spiraled into something I never expected. The guilt is overwhelming, and I know I need to confront the truth. How did I let myself get so lost? I couldn't shake off the emotions he stirred within me. That's when the guilt began to seep in. Was I truly this desperate for love? Was my heart truly so hollow that just one act of kindness could break me apart like this? I lay on my side, turned away from my husband, my eyes wide open in the darkness. I struggled to recall the last moment he held me, just to feel near. It was the last time he genuinely cared about my feelings, without wanting anything in exchange. The final moment we shared a laugh. Years had passed. That laughter, the kind that once bubbled up between us over the simplest things, had faded so quietly that I didn't realize it was missing until someone else brought a smile back to my face. I felt torn between two different selves. The person who was once vibrant, fun-loving, whimsical, and passionate, and the version lying in that bed, paralyzed, emptied by monotony and disregard. There was something so special about the way my husband would quietly approach me at the sink and plant a kiss on my neck. His words made me feel beautiful, even on days when I wore no makeup and my hair was a mess. We would sway together in the kitchen at midnight, lost in the moment, with no reason needed. But now, I couldn't recall the last moment he gazed at me as if I were something precious to keep. I found myself questioning feelings I never imagined I would explore. Is it truly so misguided to crave that spark once more? Is it truly so wrong to crave recognition, attention, and understanding? I kept convincing myself that nothing had truly occurred. It was merely a fleeting moment. It was simply a feeling. I never followed through. I stayed within my boundaries. He was a grown man, developed, responsible. We mature enough to understand limits, capable of expressing his own thoughts. I never meant to lead him on. I never intended to find anything. I found myself captivated by the attention I was receiving. I kept repeating that to myself. I found myself captivated by the attention I was receiving. Yet in my heart, I understood it was far more complicated. It was never merely about seeking attention. It was all about feeling seen and heard. For the first time in ages, it felt like someone truly noticed me again. Not in the role of a wife, not in the role of a stepmom, only as a woman. I began to monitor my actions in his presence, how I changed my life, how I expressed myself. I despised knowing, yet I felt powerless to change it. My voice took on a gentle tone. As he entered the room, I instinctively tucked my hair behind my ear. I saw it, and it filled me with a deep sense of regret. Yet, I couldn't bring myself to stop. A deep, hidden part of me, once silent and lost, was beginning to stir. I could no longer pretend it wasn't happening. The true struggle wasn't centered on him. It was all about me. What I craved, what I had kept hidden for so long, what I was missing at home. And regardless of my feelings about it, the door was already ajar. Even if I haven't experienced it myself, that night on the couch changed everything between us. Discreet, silent, yet undeniable. We both stayed silent about it. We never addressed how he supported me or how he gazed at me. From that moment, everything changed. We began to share more moments together. Of course, initially. As I prepared dinner, he would sit at the counter, sharing his struggles with classes, his frustrations, and the challenges of adjusting after leaving campus. He shared that he felt lost, as if he were drifting between two different realities of his existence, one that fell apart and another he was still trying to understand. I recognized the emotion deeper than I cared to acknowledge. I heard it all. As I revealed fragments of my own unease, he was there to listen. Truly heard. It felt natural and effortless. It was effortless. Many evenings, my husband would return home late, or sometimes not at all. Business trips began to happen more often. Dinners became lonely affairs for me, until I began preparing enough for two, and he unexpectedly started joining me. It turned into our secret ritual. I would create something from scratch. He would assist in arranging the table. We would share conversations, and at times we would simply sit together in a comfortable silence, the kind that feels safe and warm, the kind where silence speaks volumes, and just being there is everything. That night changed everything. My husband was away on a 3-day business trip. This time, I chose not to ask. I gave up on asking a long time ago. I felt relieved to escape the chill of his silence during dinner. That evening, I prepared a straightforward pasta meal. He suggested choosing the movie. Something heartfelt. Something revealing. We were perched at either end of the couch, just like we always were. There was a gap between us, yet it felt anything but far apart. As the film unfolded, our hands brushed against each other while reaching for the popcorn, a moment that felt charged with unspoken emotions. My hand accidentally grazed his knot, and it felt intense. Yet, we didn't distance ourselves immediately either. A sudden rush coursed through me, a soft thrill that tingled up my arm like a secret. For a fleeting moment, our gazes locked. We exchanged glances, then turned away, laughter spilling out, tinged with discomfort, yet soft. Yet that laughter stayed with me. The film continued. Yet I was lost in my thoughts, barely registering what unfolded on the screen. Silence enveloped us after that moment. Yet we remained exactly where we were, even closer now. With my legs tucked beneath me, I shifted my body a bit toward him. His eyes would occasionally wander in my direction. As it came to a close, he rose, stretched his limbs, expressed gratitude for the meal, and retreated to his room. I lingered in silence, eyes fixed on the screen, my heart racing in a way that felt all too intense. That night, a dream consumed me. It's all a blur, but the emotions are vivid in my mind. His hands, gentle and lingering, glided down my back. In my dream, there was an intense feeling of closeness, not physical but emotionally vivid. A whisper of contact, as if he hesitated to cross the line. And I just let him go, craving something deeper, longing for something deeper. In the dream, guilt was absent. Absolutely no doubts, just passion, bond, security. I jolted awake, feeling a rush of warmth on my skin and my breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. In that moment, I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. Confused. I'm still wrapped up in the emotions from that dream. My thoughts swirl with guilt and desire. I sat up, my hand pressed against my chest, hoping to soothe the racing heart within. What was going on with me? How could something so seemingly insignificant, just a bit of kindness and presence, have spiraled into this? I got up, slipped into my robe, and made my way to the kitchen, craving water, craving a way to escape my thoughts. There he stood, in the kitchen, preparing breakfast, exactly as it was in the dream. The storm approached, thick and deliberate. The sky rumbled ominously all evening, a low, distant thunder that felt more like a foreboding warning than mere noise. Flashes of lightning illuminated the living room in brief, intense bursts. The atmosphere was heavy, as if a storm was brewing, but I couldn't discern whether it was external or a turmoil within me. My husband was absent once more. Another night away. Another excuse I let slide. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, feigning interest in my book while my ears were tuned in to the whispers around me. Anticipating, wishing he would emerge from his room, just like that unforgettable night during the film. Perhaps we could have a conversation. Perhaps we could avoid that altogether. Perhaps the quiet would suffice once more. Then everything faded away. A sudden loud pop echoed in the distance, plunging the house into complete darkness. A deep, consuming shadow that draws everything close. I stood still for a moment, my heart pounding in my chest. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching down the hall. Serene, calm. "Hi there," he whispered gently. "Are you all right?" I nodded, then remembered he likely couldn't see me. "Absolutely. I believe the power is out." He entered the room, flashlight in hand. The light struck my face, and I recoiled, instinctively covering my eyes. He let out a soft laugh. "I apologize." He vanished for a moment, only to return with a few flickering candles. He carefully lit each candle, setting them around the room with intention. The gentle, dancing light transformed everything around it. More gentle, more heartfelt. It felt as if we were living in separate worlds. He took a seat next to me, not at the usual distance, but much closer this time. We weren't physically connected, yet I could sense his warmth surrounding me. We sat in silence for a moment, the rain softly tapping on the windows, the wind pressing against the house as if searching for an entrance. He whispered, "I used to dread storms as a child." I faced him. "Why did this happen?" His gaze was fixed on the flickering candle flame, completely avoiding mine. Everything felt completely chaotic. Everything feels precarious, and the uncertainty looms over you, leaving you powerless. I agreed silently. I understand that feeling. In that moment, his gaze pierced through, truly seeing me. Have you ever felt that way, even in calm times? I struggled to find the right words. I turned my gaze, but it was too late to conceal the truth in my eyes. "Yes," I softly admitted, "constantly." We sat there, the storm growing more intense, shadows flickering ominously on the walls. It was palpable, a tension in the air that went beyond the storm brewing outside, a connection growing between us. It had been building up silently for weeks, just waiting for the perfect moment to come to light. He moved a bit, facing me. "You're quite reserved when it comes to sharing about yourself." I offered a faint smile. "There's really not much to share." "I can't accept that." The flickering candle held my gaze, drawing me into a moment filled with unspoken truths. I once felt truly understood. Desire. As if I truly mattered. He remained silent. He listened to me. I feel like I'm just a part of someone else's story now. It's as if I exist in the shadows, invisible to everyone around me. No. Not at all. The silence lingered once more, This time felt unlike any other. He approached me gently, hesitantly. He offered a gentle gesture of reassurance that caught me off guard, a kindness I hadn't felt in a while. It was soft, nearly reluctant, yet it sent a shiver through me. I stayed still. I felt completely suffocated. His fingers brushed softly against my cheek. My heart raced, yet I felt paralyzed. Not out of fear, but because of the heaviness of the moment, from all that it represented. He gazed at me, his voice just a soft murmur. No one should have to endure this solitude. Before I had a chance to voice my thoughts, before I could recall all the reasons this was a mistake, I found myself leaning in. Not a lot, just a bit, only a little. He found me there. There was a moment of closeness that surprised me and forced me to reassess my boundaries. Not extreme, simply filled with unspoken truths between us. It was solace. It was a deep pain. Two people, trapped in a silence that screamed of their unspoken truths, had been pretending for far too long that everything was okay. I was the one who stepped away first. I kept it all to myself. He didn't either. We sat in silence, hearts heavy, eyes locked, uncertain of what would unfold. In an instant, everything came to a halt. What have I done? The next morning, the quiet between us spoke volumes beyond what words ever could. As I stirred awake, my body ached from the awkward position I dozed off in on the couch, still cocooned in that familiar blanket. The soft aroma of candles hanging in the air. The electricity had returned. The fridge hummed back to life. Outside, everything was serene once more, as if the chaos had never existed. Yet, deep down, everything felt altered. The sound of a spoon clinking in a mug reached me from the kitchen, accompanied by the gentle shuffle of his feet on the tile. This time, silence filled the air. Good morning. There was an unmistakable silence as I entered the room, no one meeting my gaze. He turned away, pouring coffee as if it were just another ordinary day, as if nothing had transpired, as if his lips hadn't touched mine just hours before. I found myself doing the same thing. I walked by him, grabbed a banana I had no desire for, and peeled it, needing something to occupy my hands. My heart raced, yet my expression remained unchanged. I had mastered the art of disguise long ago. There was silence between us. We never had to. We both avoided addressing what had happened, pretending life hadn't shifted, attempting to turn back time on something irreversible. That afternoon, my husband returned home. His suitcase dropped to the floor, making a heavy sound. He brushed his lips against my head briefly, a gesture more suited for a colleague than a spouse. He inquired about food, then vanished into the kitchen, leaving no room for a response. He was completely oblivious to the change. He never did anything. Yet, I did. Everything crumbled. My stepson was always reserved. More than ever before, he spent the majority of his day locked away in his room, emerging only to slip out the door. He claimed he needed some space, that he was going to see a friend. He hardly glanced my way as he left. I felt utterly nauseous. Not only guilty, but also deeply unwell. A profound, unsettling nausea that begins in your gut and permeates throughout your entire being. The moment kept haunting me. The tenderness of it. How I took that first step forward. He truly met me in the middle. The gaze he gave me afterward was filled with confusion and uncertainty. It felt as if he couldn't believe what had just transpired. I felt the need to reach out to him. I wanted to check in on him. I need to express that my mind was clouded. It was the tempest. The shadows loomed large, the weight of years spent in solitude crashing down in an instant. Yet, I chose not to. I kept silent. I carefully folded the laundry, I cleaned the counters even though they were already spotless, prepared meals that went unappreciated. Throughout it all, that moment replayed in my mind like a haunting echo. That evening at dinner, we sat just as we always had. My husband sits across from me, absorbed in his phone as he eats, oblivious to the distance growing between us. My stepson sat in silence, moving his food around on his plate. I was just acting like I wasn't falling apart, moment by moment. As I chewed a piece of chicken, my husband suddenly remarked, "I feel like he's been pulling away lately. Perhaps there's something weighing on his mind." My fork nearly slipped from my grasp. I raised my gaze, struggling to keep my voice calm. "He's dealing with so much at the moment. Maybe it's just the stress getting to me." My stepson remained silent. He remained completely unfazed. He got up moments later, muttering something about heading out again, and walked away. I stood there, feeling the weight of his departure as the door clicked shut, echoing in the silence. I sat there, clutching a glass of untouched water, gazing into it as if it contained the answers I was desperately seeking. It was hard to gauge his feelings of remorse. If he despised me for allowing it to unfold, or if he felt just as adrift in the aftermath as I did. Everything felt different now, and there was no turning back. Some nights carry a heavier silence than others, not only in sound, but in essence, heavy with emotion. That night, silence enveloped me, a heavy reminder that it felt as if the entire world had abandoned me. A silence that brings no comfort, just room for reflection to unravel. In the quiet of the living room, I huddled in the corner of the couch, the dim lights casting shadows that felt like they were swallowing me whole. My husband had fallen asleep long before. He never inquired about my whereabouts, never sought me out, and didn't even spare me a glance as he walked by in the hallway. I felt a strange sense of relief. I was at a loss for words. If he had asked me, in that heavy silence, I felt lost, unsure of my own identity. Do I deserve to be judged harshly, or simply someone yearning for affection? That question echoed relentlessly in my mind, a haunting melody I couldn't escape. I hoped it was merely the solitude that drove me to this point. Years of feeling invisible, of existing like a shadow in my own marriage. But is that truly a valid reason? Is that really an excuse? Am I simply holding on to this as a way to ease my guilt? I reflected on my husband and how, over the years, the man I once knew had transformed into a stranger. Perhaps I had transformed and he simply failed to see it. Perhaps that was the most painful aspect, is not that love is missing, is that understanding is lacking. He was oblivious to my exhaustion, how hollow I had felt. He was oblivious to the tears I shed alone in the bathroom, gazing at my reflection as if it belonged to someone else. He remained oblivious to the unspoken doubts I took to bed with me every night. Am I important? Would he even care if I were gone? He was completely oblivious to it all. Yet, another person stepped in. I couldn't shake the thought. What if it had escalated? What if I had stayed closer? Did I really allow this to unfold? Did I truly desire it? I finally faced the truth I had been avoiding, even within my own heart. Yes, there was a part of me that craved it. It's more than just the physical aspect. It wasn't about the kiss itself, yet the emotions tied to it. It was the bond that changed everything. The comfort, the burden of being noticed, embraced, wanted, if only for a fleeting moment. And that terrified me more than anything else. I was unsure of what that revealed about me, reflecting on the person I had turned into. In the marriage I was still a part of, I had been slowly drifting away for years, feeling more like an outsider. I thought about confessing to my husband. It all started with a little flirtation during dinner one night. Revealing my truth, like a lost spirit yearning for atonement. What could I possibly express? That night, a moment of confusion and emotional overwhelm led me to cross a boundary I can't take back, driven by an overwhelming need for affection. How do you start to untangle something like that? I envisioned the consequences, the betrayal, the quietness hung heavy in the air, the heartache. Perhaps it really doesn't make a difference after all. Perhaps he would simply blink and return to his screen. Perhaps he wouldn't be shocked at all. The pain was deeper than the remorse. In the end, he left. My stepson, the one who changed everything, softly, calmly, and straightforward, without any inquiries. He mentioned it was finally time to find a place nearer to campus. I chose not to question it. I didn't plead for him to remain. We haven't talked since that day. I can't tell if he despises me. I'm not sure if he sees it through the same lens as I do. I wonder if he has hidden it as deeply as I have. Yet, in the stillness of the night, as the wind howls, like it did during that storm, memories flood back to me. The candlelight danced softly across his features, etching a moment I can't forget. His voice trembled as he told me I didn't deserve to feel this lonely. He offered quiet reassurance that made me realize just how emotionally exposed I'd become, and I suddenly realized how emotionally vulnerable I had become, igniting a rush of emotions within me. And I can't help but wonder, in that fleeting moment when our lives intertwine, did a part of me shatter, or did something finally stir within? I may never find out. What I can share is I never truly recovered from it. I understand that. Some of you may look down on me. Perhaps you ought to. Perhaps you're reflecting on this at this very moment, feeling a deep sense of disbelief, reflecting, how could she do this? How could a woman break the trust of her marriage? What about her family, her own self? Is that what you mean? Before you allow that judgment to weigh heavy in your heart, please take a moment to reflect on this question. Have you ever endured a quiet existence for so long that your own thoughts begin to fade into the background? Have you ever longed for a simple touch so intensely that it felt essential to your very existence? Have you ever glanced at someone and for the first time in ages felt like you truly existed? It was exactly that. It was never about desire. It wasn't a wild dream or a shocking secret. It stemmed from a deep sense of isolation, a profound, painful loneliness that resonates beyond the heart. It suits you perfectly. I never intended to cause pain to anyone. I never intended for everything to shift in an instant. Yet, it happened. It's something I've had to carry with me. So I wonder, was it really emotional betrayal? Was the kiss more painful than the years of feeling invisible? Is it possible to forgive someone who sought to feel alive, even if just for a moment? Have you ever found yourself drawn to someone's warmth when your heart felt empty? I know not everyone will get it. Perhaps, just perhaps, there's someone who understands what I'm feeling. Perhaps you can relate. Perhaps you're experiencing that moment. Caught in the quiet, barely hanging on. I truly hope you discover your voice before it's too late. Think carefully before you decide something irreversible, before desire overtakes reason. Once that boundary is crossed, even softly and silently, everything changes forever. If this resonates with you, if you've ever found yourself in an unexplainable situation, even to your own heart, please share your experience below. I'm not here to cast any judgment. I'm ready to hear you out. If you're craving more genuine and intricate tales like this, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss a thing. Welcome to the gripping tale of betrayal and heartache. I appreciate you listening to me.